Hunting by Stars, Chapter 32, Mother's Dearest, 3 days before. Moms do what is best for their children, always. It was rule number 1 in the handbook. There were 20 rules in total, each with bulleted points, but this one was number 1. Adeline McKenna had urged that it should be the organization's motto instead of being grouped in with cleanliness is next to godliness, with its 12 subpoints. It's the central principle of moms. It should at least be in a bigger font. Adeline had issues with the formatting of the handbook in general. She brought it up every meeting since they'd been distributed. It started with the fact that the manual consisted of typed pages in an 1.5-inch thick binder labeled with hand-lettered stickers. These holes aren't even reinforced, she'd remarked the first time she'd seen it, tearing out the first page to demonstrate. Highlight it then if you feel so strongly, Shirley Rachel Mitchell responded. She had typed up each page herself and wasn't budging. Besides, we already have a motto. And they did, drafted by all 12 of them, including Adeline McKenna, and approved by Elizabeth Purdue, the founding mother herself. Securing our future by any means necessary. The Mothers of Meaningful Slumber, Moms, Incorporated, 2041, Albany, New York. It was on page 1 of the handbook in bold 18-point Times New Roman, underlined even, and centered. It was as extravagant as President Purdue would go. Someone had once suggested changing it to Helvetia, but she had retired to her upstairs bedroom to lie down. 10 years of hardship had beaten them all down, Adeline included. My Jimmy has been put into an induced coma. The meds came too late for him, and now I am back to changing diapers and singing lullabies, and he was on track to be the next governor of New York State. Everyone knew Adeline's son had been a stoner, with bangs that covered his forever red eyes and a penchant for sending unwanted pictures of his privates to random classmates even before he got to the plague. But the moms sat quietly while she spoke, as was their way. Not one of them breaking the code, not one of them pointing out that before the coma, Adeline had been in the middle of signing little Jimmy up for military school down in Georgia. She had cut his bangs the first day he was put under, not that he needed to see better. His eyes remained closed day in and day out, but at least now she recognized her boy as the boy he was in her heart, the boy he meant to be all along. Damn meds are doing nothing but making us into zombies, said Shirley Rachel. She was respected in the group. She was great secretary and always brought the snacks. But there was the matter of her smoking. Not that she did it indoors, but she went outside so many times for quick breaks that her clothes and skin reeked. And because she was the secretary, they had to wait idly each time or fill her in on everything she'd missed so they could be entered into the official minutes. Honestly, the same damn 4 dreams every time. Every damn time. You'd think they'd get HBO involved in the lab so we could at least have some variety. I'm about to jump off a damn bridge, and I would, except jumping off a bridge is already one of the 4 dreams, so why bother? Veronica Smith was the newest member, and Adeline was still suspicious of her. She wasn't alone in the feeling, but she was the only one who spoke her disdain out loud, even if it was mostly after the meetings, when a few of them would meet for coffee or quilting. What's the matter? Veronica seemed a little fussy, doesn't it? And Smith, with a Y? Well, that's just putting on false airs. Veronica had gone from a shamed teenage mother to a local celebrity when it became clear that her unexpected pregnancy 9 years ago was one of the last few in the state. She was even in the paper, in between stories about the goings-on in Canada and the updates on dream enhancers that were announced monthly by the president and her chief medical officer from the White House lawn. The moms had good reason to be suspicious. Veronica had only joined at the insistence of her friend Maggie McConnell, and she had yet to join in on any of their darker deeds, like their latest plan to secure their future by any means necessary. Do we really think we can do this? She was holding her coffee mug with both hands like a small child. I mean, I'm not just sure I could. We are all going to do this. Not one of us is hanging back, Adeline began with a sigh. That's why we gather in the first place, to take action where our woman president will not. I mean, come on, there's a viable cure right there in our faces, and we're just going to ignore it and keep lining up at the dispensary for her ridiculous potions? She threw her hands up. Jimmy doesn't have time to wait around for her hair to grow a pair. It's just, Veronica's voice was as small as her grip. Adeline had had enough. It's just what, Veronica? Do you really want your child growing up in a world without art, without literature, without innovation? Because that's where we're headed. People can't dream anything, but these manufactured dreams, the whole progress bus takes a detour to Broken Town. Maybe not as fast as people without the meds, but we'll get there sure enough. Veronica bowed her blonde head and sniffed. Right. Adeline was leaning forward so far on the edge of her folding chair that the back legs lifted. She waited for an answer. She got one in the form of a reluctant nod. Good, Adeline continued, now that she had held the floor. Now, I think we need to talk about our home base again. I still maintain that the best possible location is my house. It's detached, so there's no worry about close neighbors, and it's a quick drive to Walmart for supplies and the Super 8 for those who choose to stay close. Elizabeth Purdue cleared her throat. She had been sitting on the settee by the window, where the best light poured in this time of day. Her lavender pleated skirt fell gracefully to her calves. Her waist was cinched with a simple white belt, showing off an admirable figure for a woman nearing 80. She still had her hair set once a week and wore lipstick to match her outfit. She was an Easter parade in the living room. Adeline, dear, we've already settled this. We are making Shirley Rachel's home our headquarters. It's located outside city limits. She has a pool house with cement walls and enough room in the main house for some of us to stay overnight. She turned to Shirley Rachel to make sure she took the note. We'll figure out a way to determine the order. Those who stay there will not get priority over those who don't. We'll always wait until we gather. And of course, I will be staying at my own home. There's just simply no way I could sleep out. Of course, Shirley Rachel made the note. Adeline tipped her chair back to the ground and folded her arms over her chest. None of these bitches knew how to be a vigilante. In fact, they refused to even the word vigilante. That's what they were, striking out on their own to provide what the government could not or would not. She was starting to think maybe she would strike on her own again, especially since she knew something the others did not yet anyway. I would just like to say, Kelsey Jones interjected, lifting a well-manicured finger, that I offer up my house as an alternate. Seeing as my sweet mother-in-law is in critical condition, it might be easier for me to be close to home just in case. In case you get a chance to slip her some of the goods before the rest of us get it. Adeline hadn't meant to say it out loud, but there it was, hanging in the room, floating above their heads inside the embossed wallpaper walls. For a few seconds, there was nothing but the loud ticking of Elizabeth's grandfather clock. Adeline McKenna, you take that back. I would never... Ladies, please. Elizabeth cut Kelsey off before it could get heated. After all, she was still the undisputed queen of this small kingdom, even if her fiefdom ended at her gated driveway. The decisions have been made and everyone knows the rules. We have worked too hard to get someone on the inside, and this opportunity is too perfect to tear down with selfish squabbling. And let's not forget, it's not just the government we need to worry about. It's all the groups sprouting up, running around like wild men, snatching anyone with a suntan. We don't need to lose our prize to a bunch of backwood drunken hunters, not when we've come this far. Kelsey's face was vivid red under her powder, mostly because she had been planning on skipping the line. Yes, Mother. Elizabeth turned to Adeline, locking eyes with her until the younger woman bowed her head like Veronica Smith and nodded just as timidly. Good. Now, she clapped her hands to indicate the matter was settled. There is cargo retrieval left to suss out. Shirley Rachel, you have the map? Sure do. She put her notebook on the coffee table and reached for her spring jacket. Let me just take a quick break and we'll get right to it. Every woman in the room exhaled at the same time. Another break. Shirley, why don't you just leave the map while you go out for fresh air so we can start studying it, Veronica said kindly. Kiss ass, Adeline thought. Suit yourself. Map's in my tote bag. She flapped her hand toward a canvas bag with a picture of 2 cats on the front and the train schedule in the green folder. Then she let herself out onto the back deck, flicking her lighter even before the door had slid back into place. Veronica got the papers and spread them out on the coffee table. The women pulled their chairs in closer. Those farther back in the room, the half-dozen lesser members, stood in the spaces in between. Miranda had done good. She was their role model in the nurses' smuggling network. She had also happened to be Adeline's first cousin. It was through her that Adeline had the inside scoop on the Canadian schools and what they were offering. And it was a good offer, one that, depending on how this went, she might take them up on. Okay, so we have enough vehicles lined up to take the whole group? Elizabeth asked. 3 minivans, a pickup, and my Fiat, Veronica answered. Excellent. That car is ridiculous. Looks like a regular-sized car took a dump. Adeline had quite enough of little Miss Uterus today. She couldn't wait until things got back to normal so they could go back to shunning her for getting knocked up before she had her braces off. Elizabeth chose to ignore the comment. They had work to do if they were going to pull this off. Miranda went to great lengths to infiltrate the network, she said. She has assured us that the next delivery to Albany Station will be Wednesday at precisely noon. Of course, we will be there well before. The route is not often used, and I had Frank take care of the station master already. Turned out he hadn't been paid in over a month, so it didn't take too much cajoling. Frank was Elizabeth's husband. He could cook a decent croquet monsieur and was quick with his checkbook, so they'd enjoyed a lovely 50-year union. They had 4 children and 6 grandchildren. Elizabeth's life was full. Starting moms meant keeping that fullness healthy. Frank was getting odd lately, and she was worried about the possible side effects of the dream meds. It was either that or senile. "Do you know how many we're getting?" one of the lesser moms inquired. "It is unclear at this point, but we do know it's going to be more than one individual, so we don't have to worry about being too fragile." Elizabeth thought that was a lovely way to put it. "And the nurses they're traveling with, what do we do with them?" Elizabeth settled against the cushions and adjusted the gold rings on her fingers. "Well, dear, I suppose we let them go, and the conductor as well. No use in harming them. What they're doing is illegal, so there's no need to worry about any of them going to the authorities, and it would be just dandy if they kept right on doing their jobs so we had more deliveries to look forward to." Veronica sighed, pulling back from the group huddling around the map on the handwritten schedule. "What is it, dear?" Elizabeth asked her quietly while conversation continued about who was bringing guns and who would be bringing and riding with whom. "It's just," she winced. It was hard to even imagine participating in violence. And what if there were children? "It's just, if we do this, aren't we no better than the rest?" "What rest?" "The domestic terrorists, the backwoods drunks running around grabbing the natives. Aren't we doing the same thing? Aren't we exactly the same?" Elizabeth laughed. It was a rare sound that shocked the room into silence. "Oh, my dear, no, 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 no." She patted her lacquered chignon. "We are doing this for the children because, as dictated by rule number 1, ladies," she raised her hand like a conductor in front of an orchestra, and the group responded like a well-timed overture. "Moms do what's best for their children, always." "Exactly." She approached Veronica and put a soft hand on each shoulder. Her Cheshire cat grin matted laughter. "And, my dear, we follow the rules. After all, we are civilized ladies, not some gang of wild savages stowing away on a train. And when they get here," this was what Adeline really wanted to know, the action part. Just how actiony would it be? "Well, we'll secure them, we'll conduct some research and testing, and we'll carefully measure out the cure." Elizabeth was already tired, and annoyance was slipping into her tone. "Research, measure out? What about those of us who need a solution, like yesterday?" Jimmy needed Adeline to stay angry if he was going to get better. Meeting adjourned. Elizabeth clapped. She was done. So was Adeline. On the drive home, Adeline used voice messaging to text Miranda, the woman on the inside, the one who'd spent months getting into the inner circle. Also the person she'd first gotten drunk with at 13 and whom she'd stayed close to when the shit started to hit the fan. "We need to talk." She didn't mince words. She never did. Mincing was for President Perdue and the wimp Veronica. They could mince all they wanted. Adeline was ready to take what was hers. The Canadian schools were offering a reward for the return of lost assets, and not something stupid like a bag of cash or the key to some podunk Canadian city. No, they were offering special dispensation for an informant to relocate to Canada with their immediate family. Canada, where you could have all the straight from the source dream serum you needed. Forget the moms and their hesitant and measured pace. Adeline could make sure Jimmy got more than enough to come back to her and then some. "I think it's time to reach out to the school people. I'm tired of this shit." Her phone beeped to confirm the message was sent. If there was one thing Adeline knew, it was that being tired didn't mean you would be able to sleep. She was lying in bed, wide awake, and reading a romance novel when Miranda texted back. "Roger that, I'll make a call." Her phone screen was still glowing when she put a receipt between the pages to mark her place and set the book down on the nightstand. Then she settled into her pillows in a bed made too wide by her husband's recent absence and fell asleep. If she could have dreamed, it would have been a good one.